In this video, we're going to talk about fundamentals. Now, we've been going over technical analysis, but there's also fundamental analysis. Now, when you look at the trade that we entered on Euro USD, you can see that we've been taken out of the trade. The trade came back and hit our stop loss and took us out of the trade. So we're no longer in this trade. If you go down to history tab down at the bottom, click history, you can see that trade here. It was a sale, volume 10. You can see where we entered price wise, and then you can see it hit our stop loss at 1.07246. And because we moved our stop loss within profit, we profited $1,190 on that one trade. So we could have made $7,000 on the trade if we would have exited here, but because it retraced and hit our stop loss, we got $1,190. A win's a win. We made money, and technically we know what happened. So we know that the technicals on this, if I flip to trading view here, if I flip to trading view, when we entered the trade, it came down. We see that support hit an old resistance level. That old resistance became support on a trend line, a upward bullish trend line, and price started to head back towards us. So we should be coming back to the entry. The red line represents our entry. And so we moved the stop loss down just above this peak, and when it spiked up, it hit our stop loss, took us out. So technically, we can understand what why price traveled and why we entered and why we exited at this position. But in this video, we're going to talk about fundamentals. That fundamentals is what's happening in the environment to influence what the trade is doing. And so we use certain things like news to understand what makes these currencies weak or strong. And those are the fundamental analysis. And so we use this in combination with the technical analysis. We're mainly focused on technical analysis, but the fundamentals helps us understand what's happening in the economy that's influencing price swings. And so if you look at Euro and USD, what is happening with price? What's making USD weak? What's making Euro strong right now? And that is fundamentals. And so I'm the way that I look at it, because my background is in real estate. And so the way I look at it is that when you're in real estate, how do you determine the value of a home? And there's certain indicators that tell you if a home, what price a home is going to sell at and in what neighborhood. You can look at the current home mortgage rates. What are those? The recent homes that were recently sold. You can look at the crime rate of the neighborhood, the condition of the home, nearby amenities. All of these things will tell you how the home, how's the home in that neighborhood doing. And so the same way that we look at a home and determine its value through different indicators, we look at world currencies in the same manner. And so currency value strength, we look at just different indicators. We look at Federal Reserve Bank interest rates. We can look at the recent comparable sales. So what has the exchange rate sold for before and recently? We can look at the national employment rate. There's indicators like the gross domestic product, GDP, CPI, retail sales, manufacturing sales. Those report monthly, quarterly, yearly, and so those reports are always coming out. Fed chair announcements are, I live in the United States, so whenever Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaks, it usually moves the market. It makes things, makes currency strength go up or down for the US dollar and other things. So it's about how the economy is doing, and that determines the strength of the currency. So investors are investing in national currencies. For instance, if the economy in the United States is shrinking and going down, investors are going to pull their money out, which will weaken the U.S. dollar. Same thing in Japan or in China. If their economy is booming, then investors wants to flood that economy with their money. But if it's contracting, and if right now Japan has negative interest rates on the yen, China has negative interest rates on the yen, and so when that happens, investors pull their money out. It makes that currency weak, and we can see that strength play out in the market. And so we can use these indicators to determine, just like we can determine how well the neighborhood is doing, we can also use that to determine how well the economies are doing within different countries. And so when we look at technical analysis, we combine that with fundamentals of how the economy is doing. And so we use a website called forexfactory.com. And Forex Factory produces red folder news. Red folder news is usually events that are coming up that will affect the economy of that country. And so as you can see this morning, we had unemployment claim news on US dollar. We forecast what we previously were at 220,000 claims, and then that dropped. And so that signaled some weakness in the US dollar this morning. And so when the US dollar is weak, what we can see is this morning, the quote is weak and the base is strong. What does that do? When the base is strong, it's going to push price up. If the base is stronger than the quote, it's going to push price up. And that's what we've seen happen is with USD being weak, price pushed up. And so now we can see that uptrend continue. And that's a fundamental analysis that helps us with the technicals. When the fundamentals line up with the technicals, that is a plus for us. And so we can see that the technicals were on a trend line. It was a trend line bounce. We're at a level of retest of this last high. And fundamentals is saying that USD is weak. So the fundamentals lined up with the technicals, and we can take this up. And so that's a good way to know where price is going. That's just an extra level of confluence by adding the fundamentals, understanding what's going on in the nation's economy, and how that influences price action.